NVIDIA gives us a deep dive on the RTX 50 series. John Deere's getting sued by the US government, and more leaked 9070 specs. We got basically everything besides the price. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Thursday, January 16th, 2025. Gonna start off today reminding you of the two things that I remind you every episode recently. Number one, we have that PC giveaway going on over on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/UFD Tech, 14900KF RTX 4090 PC. We're gonna be drawing a winner for that next Friday. Then the second announcement is that we have a new project that Reece and I have been working on, our UFD music channel. If you want to go check out some lo-fi chiptunes beat, you can check that out at the link in the video description. Get subscribed. We have more music dropping soon. A lot of people have been asking where's the Spotify, Apple Music, other platform links. We don't have those just yet. We're still working on distribution for that at the moment, so YouTube's the best we can do right now. And what was the best that NVIDIA could do at CES was give us a little teaser of what's going into the RTX 50 series, but they decided that yesterday was the day where the embargo was going to drop on like all of the deep dive, the engineering stuff, how all of their new software works, how all of the new hardware works, the ray tracing cores, the SMs, everything that's basically being baked into the chips besides the actual final review was discussed by NVIDIA yesterday. So I'd highly recommend you check out this DF Direct special by Digital Foundry. It's 90 minutes long, but they go over basically everything that you could possibly want to learn, whether that's the very technical deep dives about how the SMs are being reorchestrated and how it's different than the Ada Lovelace or even Turing architecture, how things like the tensor stuff has been refactored, what neural rendering means. All of that kind of stuff has just been kind of condensed into a very digestible format over on Digital Foundry's video. So highly recommend it, but I'm gonna try to distill the most essential parts for you. Number one, multi-frame generation is kind of the big thing when it comes to the RTX 50 series. That's no shocker. That's how you get a 5070 being equal to the 4090. It's because the 5070 has access to 2 extra AI frames. But one of the things that Digital Foundry brings up in their video, which I think is valid regardless of the talking points on the internet, is the idea that with those AI frames being generated, because they're only going to be on screen for a short amount of time, all of the flaws that you can find when you're minutely picking out the problems with it when it's a screenshot, you're not actually seeing those in motion, which brings up another conversation point that's brought up in the Digital Foundry video, but I've also kind of seen elsewise out on the internet, is kind of how do we review graphics cards moving forward, because it's not just about raster performance anymore. And this is going to create a situation where we have to start identifying how reviews take shape with regards to not just NVIDIA and the RTX 50 series and the nonsense that they're pushing with their multi-frame gen, but also things like Intel's XeSS and their frame generation and AMD's FSR3 and FSR4. How does that all kind of wrap together as a complete package? It's very different where it now seems like graphics cards are more about the like drag racing horsepower, where it's how fast can you go down the strip and hit your quarter-mile time, and now it's going to be more about how is the daily driving experience of this high-end sports car, or how is it of this mid-sized sedan that's for the every person. It's not just about the speed that it can go. You slap a V6 and a Honda Accord, it can go faster, but you still have the accoutrement that come with just a normal everyday beater car. So I think that was the analogy Digital Foundry used, that this is going to start becoming more about the more well-rounded aspects. It's not just frame gen, but it's also about the actual experience of the frames that you can't measure in things like frame time or frame time consistency. It's going to start being about input latency at the given moment, and how does the software that's being used refactor the frames to be smoother like NVIDIA's Reflex do. It's going to be a wild generation coming up, and I think that's something to be paying attention to. Another thing to not be paying attention to that NVIDIA tried to show off was their AI NPCs. I agree with Engadget saying that they're a nightmare. I got to see some of it at Computex. I got to see some of other people's coverage of it, and this is just bad. It doesn't look like this is gonna be implemented very effectively, at least from NVIDIA's side. Maybe it could be better implemented by actual game dev, but the problem with AI NPCs is that they lack soul and personality and a tight constructed narrative and world building is usually what makes a good game. And so when you remove that and you toss it into the hands of AI, it's not coming across great. But let's get into the most important part, and that is, how do these GPUs stack up to their predecessors, especially when it comes to not frame gen, 5070 equal 4090, but actually in raster performance? Well, it turns out that no matter what we do, NVIDIA is not going to give that to us right now. We're going to have to wait for third-party reviews. But they did come out with more slides showing things like with just ray tracing or just DLSS and then DLSS 4. You can see Horizon Forbidden West, Resident Evil 4 on the left side, kind of trying to give us an indication of what the regular performance gap will be before you start turning on the RTX 50 series exclusive features. So you can see that the 5090 will beat the 4090, the 5080 will beat the 4080, the 5070 Ti will beat the 4070 Ti, and the 5070 will beat the 4070. But there's actually a percentage breakdown that we can kind of see here. So the shader increase on the 5090 is 33%, the 5080 is only 11%, the 5070 Ti is only 17%, and the 5070 is only 4%. And then you can look at the Resident Evil plus Horizon Forbidden West ray tracing DLSS put together. 5090 is still about 33%. The 5080 appears to be the worst one of the bunch, coming in at 15%, and then the other ones down the line are actually 20%. So it looks like the 5090 is going to be the largest step up, which makes a lot of sense. NVIDIA put the most engineering and architecture development and more CUDA cores. Like, the gap between the 5080 and the 5090 is about 2x, and that's, I think, one of the largest gaps we've seen between an 80 class card and the card above it. So it's massive, and the 5080 kind of seems like it's better than the 4080, and it's gonna be better than the 4080 Super. So if you were okay with buying either one of those, the 5080 is gonna be the logical conclusion of what you should buy right now if you were looking in that $1,000 price point and you wanted to stick with NVIDIA and you weren't considering AMD. And it's the same thing with the 5070 Ti and the 5070. If you were looking at the 4070 Tisper or the 4070 Super, these become the replacement for those. They're not necessarily an upgrade. That's not what you should be doing. You shouldn't be going from your 4070 Super to a 5070, but if you've been holding on to your 1070 and you were looking at that $500, $550 price point, you wanted to stay with NVIDIA, the 5070 is gonna just be a sensible buy when you compare it to something like the 4070 at a higher price point technically. And as we're discussing this is a drum that I just want to keep beating on when it comes to all of this stuff. I've been seeing a lot of conversation surrounding this of it's only a 20% increase, or it's only an 11% increase, or it's only a 33% increase. I feel like that is just misguided, because my question to you is, how much should it be? What is the number that should be there for the generation on generation improvement? Which, once you answer that question, then I would follow up with, how were the engineers supposed to do that? How are the engineers supposed to deliver that extra performance with their architectural improvements, with their clock speed improvements, with their power delivery targets, with their price point targets? How are they actually supposed to accomplish that and meet your satisfaction of what you're demanding out of these companies? The engineering side of it, this is something that's never been done before. We've never had a consumer card as fast as the RTX 5090. We've never had a 5080 before. This had to be designed. It had to be engineered. It has to not just go through NVIDIA's hands, but then TSMC actually has to fabricate these chips. And not only does TSMC have to fabricate these chips, they have to have the lithography technology to do it and get all of those big, gigantic machines from ASML to actually make these things. This is all like bleeding edge, end of where like technical knowledge is on how to actually produce these things. And so I just want us to appreciate that. We don't have to appreciate Jensen. We don't have to appreciate the marketing nonsense of 5070 equals 4090. But at the same time, to get a 5% improvement out of a chip, that's 5% that wasn't there before. That is brand new. That is something that didn't exist. And the future progress is never inevitable. It takes active effort by people in order to actually make progress, both in tech as well as in other aspects of life. Progress is not inevitable. It is decided by people who decide to push for it. It's a little bit of a rant, but like, I just want us to be cognizant of the idea that engineers have to engineer things. They don't just pull the numbers out of their butt. They have to create brand new things. And one of the things I'm most excited about that they created was the dual slot cooler, which we also got another engineering breakdown from NVIDIA on all of this, just kind of discussing how they created the double flow through Founders Edition cooler. And it's kind of disappointing to see that third-party companies aren't actually taking advantage of this. They're going to be 3.5 to 4 slot coolers, even if they do the double flow through, like MSI's Lightning is supposed to have that, but it's also over a 3 slot card, so it's just going to be massive. The engineering complexity that goes into this is astounding. I love to see it. Honestly, the Founders Edition, even if it's not the most wowzer GPU, it is definitely the most impressive in my mind, and the one that I would want to get if I was picking one up. Which, if you're looking to upgrade to a 50 series PC, you should definitely check out today's video sponsor, Falcon Northwest. They've been in business for over 3 decades, being the first PC company dedicated to making PCs for gaming. They've been around for ages. Their customer support is there to keep them going throughout that timeline, and they were at the NVIDIA event showing off what is going to be their next generation of PCs with the RTX 50 series. And one of the things that most impressed me is that the 5090 is SFF ready. Then you have things like Falcon Northwest Tiki, which 5090 fits in it just fine. You also had their frag box being on display, showing off that yes, it can actually fit all the new hardware, as well as their Talon doing some showcasing of NVIDIA's new tech. I rock the Talon at home as my personal PC. We've given away a Tiki and a frag box as part of our charity streams before, and Falcon Northwest has designed custom liveries for that because their big thing is making sure that the PC is designed for you and you alone. The specs that you need, as well as the design aesthetic that you want. I have a big beefy Reece face on the side of my PC. You can, if you get his consent, also have that too. And I also just want to take a second to talk about things like Falcon Northwest being involved in the community. I talked about in the last time that we had an ad by them that I would love to have a SteamOS PC by them. And wouldn't you know it, the founder of Falcon Northwest emails me a picture of Steam machines from Falcon Northwest with Gavin showing them off. So they were there. Hopefully they'll be there in the future, but that's one of the big things that I love about Falcon Northwest is that they are there for the community, whether that's problems with CPUs like the 13th and 14th gen, diagnosing that and giving that information to their customers, or giving you 3 years warranty with 1 year of overnight service to make sure that you have peace of mind with regards to your PC. So you can check out Falcon Northwest at the link in the video description, whether that's for an RTX 50 series upgrade, for gaming, content creation, or potentially even a workstation like their Threadripper setup. You can check them out down below. Big thanks to Falcon Northwest for sponsoring today's video. But now let's talk about the next portion of what's going on with NVIDIA and the RTX 50 series. We discussed recently this week during Hot News about the embargo dates for the reviews. We're expecting to get the RTX 5090 reviews to come out late next week, and the initial report was that the RTX 5080 was only going to get its review on launch day. So you had no time between when the review came out and when purchasing was available, potentially with limited stock, and by the time you get to watch all of the reviews that you want, you missed out on being able to buy them. So reports are coming out that NVIDIA has actually changed it. They have made it so that the RTX 5080 is going to have its review date the day before January 29th, the first day of the new Chinese New Year, and this is only going to be specifically for the Founders Edition. It's going to have its review embargo on the 29th. Third-party cards are going to be on the 30th, but I think that this is at least a healthy compromise. We've seen this being done by NVIDIA before, where they stagger it, where you got the Founder and the third party being on 2 different dates. At least with the 5080 Founders Edition, we get a sense of what the card looks like. We get a sense of what it's capable of, giving you at least 24 hours to digest this information before you have to make sure that you're standing in line to pick up whatever GPU that you want. So less shenanigans by NVIDIA there. I think that's a win for consumers, at least having 1 day of information. But also winning for consumers and less deceivery is Bing. In case you hadn't heard the reports, Microsoft was taking people who searched for Google on Bing and creating this page that looks like you're Googling, but you're still on Bing. This search box that's below the original search box is not a Google search box, it is a Microsoft search box. It's a dark pattern approach for Microsoft to get you to stay on their platform. However, after the outcry, the public recognition that Microsoft was doing this, they have pulled that back. Typing Google will now just give you regular search results and not just try to trick you into staying on Bing while you're trying to Google what you should Google when you're binging what you're binging. And speaking of deceivery, Razer allegedly had some when it came to their Razer mask that they launched during the pandemic. It was being reported that customers would get a refund if they purchased it because it was deceitful. The FTC now making that official. Razer has settled with them for over $1 million to send all of the money back to the 6,764 people who purchased the Razer mask. Whether they got the mask with 3 filters or the mask with 33 filters, they're gonna get a full refund, and it's just a good move. If you purchased a Razer mask, you can now get a refund for it. A lot of this was just centered around their N95 rating when they didn't actually have that. Then they took it off the website. Just a little bit of deceitful marketing, and it's now being rectified. However, if you did happen to, trust the mask and then you had medical issues after that, it's a different story than just getting a refund for the bit of consumer gadgetry that you purchased. Speaking of purchasing consumer gadgetry, let's see what Reece can save money for you on with that.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals on the internet. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll jump straight into the deals for you. Starting off today, we have the Summer ARGB 120mm Infinity Mirror Case fan available in white or black for only $4.99, making it $15 off. But then next up, we have the King Spec DDR4 RAM kit featuring 32 gigs at 3200 megahertz running at CL18 for only $40.99, making it $21 off. And then lastly, if you need a speedy boy, you can grab this MSI Mag 25-inch 1080p 300Hz rapid IPS gaming monitor for only $139.99, making it $20 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, I'll hand you back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, a lot of people think they're getting a bad deal with the death of TikTok that's supposed to be impending this coming Saturday here in the United States. It's going to be shutting down as of January 19th, and TikTok has announced that it's not going to be something that you can work around. Originally, people were thinking, okay, it's just going to get removed from the App Store, but users can still access the app. However, that would require things like American companies to serve the data, and that would be allegedly in violation of the United States law that is forcing TikTok to be banned in the first place because ByteDance doesn't want to divest TikTok to an American company. And so TikTok announcing that it's just going to be totally shut down this coming Sunday. It will not be accessible if you try to use a VPN. There's also been some warnings that companies that participate in that could also be fined by the US government. It's creating a whole slew of issues. There's also still a push for an American group to potentially buy out TikTok from ByteDance. Mr. Beast, I think, tweeted about it, that he's in discussions with this. Whether or not that plays out before this coming Saturday, I would say is unlikely, but TikTok appears to be going away, and John Deere's bad repair practices might also be going away because the FTC has initiated a lawsuit against John Deere for its lousy repair practices, which have been demonstrated across the internet many times over, with them locking down repair, making it so that farmers and anybody who has their equipment has to go to a very specific dealer and repair facility rather than being able to repair their own equipment themselves wherever they belong, and it's doing a very Apple approach to farming equipment. The FTC saying that John Deere has illegally restricted the ability of farmers and independent technicians to repair Deere equipment, including tractors and combines, and so they are going after them for that to potentially allow John Deere to open up the repair options for people who have their equipment. That's the FTC right now. Who knows what's going to happen with the next administration, whether or not this is actually going to continue through, if the FTC chair stays the same. All of that is going to be up in the air moving forward. But another good thing for Right to Repair is that Microsoft and iFixIt have been continuously partnering together to get more repair out there. And now you can get console parts both on Microsoft's website as well as iFixIt's website. You're able to buy repair parts for both the Xbox Series S and Series X consoles. It's just a win all around right there. And a lot of people want to be winning when it comes to getting an AMD graphics card. RTX 50 series is nice, but a lot of people just want Team Red. And so we're trying to get all the details that we can. AMD had a little Meet the Experts webinar event where they basically said not a whole lot new. So in it, they confirmed that they will be having another event to discuss it. So release date is likely not imminent. I would guess that it's probably not going to be sooner than February, but there's no actual date for that event, which just makes it feel like they're not prepared for it. It just, all of this screams that they're just trying to play cat and mouse with NVIDIA, and they don't have their own brand identity sense of what they're trying to accomplish. So I'm not necessarily vibing with how they're going about this. Just like when they launched the RX 6000 series in Fortnite, it just felt like a consumer tone-deaf move where they're just like, haha, we didn't have time in our CES announcement because it's so important. That's why we only put it in slides afterwards, even though we've definitely done it in 45 minutes before with just as much information. And actually, we were kind of waiting to see what NVIDIA was doing. We didn't want to talk about it before them. And now we're going to have another special event, but we're not going to tell you when that's happening. We're not going to tell you when the cards are coming out. We're not going to give you any details that you actually want to know. But stay tuned, because we promise it's going to be worth it. I've seen this dog and pony show from AMD before. It's kind of frustrating, but we do have specs being released by a retailer who shouldn't have done this, but now we have a lot of details. Essentially, all we're missing at this point are AMD slides for gaming performance and then the actual price point for these GPUs. Allegedly, the 9070 XT is supposed to come in at $489 for the reference card. I really hope it does, especially when you see the spec list of these RDNA 4 cards, because the 9070 XT is coming in between the 7800 XT and the 7900 GRE when it comes to its actual core count, and it's going to be slightly above that in its VRAM speed, but being the exact same in the VRAM amount. So it's going to be a brand new architecture. It's going to have brand new engineering on the inside, but then also going to have more cores than the 7800 XT. That card launched at $499, so $489 for the 9070 XT. Doesn't appear to be too outlandish. Getting 4070 Ti Super to 4080 Super level performance for $500 hopefully will be a good deal. The 9070 being a little bit under the 7800 XT, getting closer to a 7700 XT, but having more VRAM at that 16 gigs. Remains to be seen how much that one's gonna cost, but on AMD's FAQ about these GPUs, they're saying that the 9070 XT could be for 4K, and it's not gonna have Gen 5, it's only gonna have Gen 4 PCI Express lanes, and you're gonna need a 600 watt power supply. And they'll have one HDMI 2.1A and 3 DisplayPort 2.1s. A lot of details, just not the good ones, and not from AMD's own mouth, because they're trying to play mind games of some sort with who? I don't know. Their customers, I guess, and that's why they're losing market share. Oh, but before I tick off more AMD fanboys, let's go ahead and see how I tick you off in yesterday's episode of Hot News. Joe's coming in saying AMD is that company we all want to see hit a home run, and the way to do so seems obvious to everyone but AMD themselves. Provide unbeatable value. Yeah, I can't agree more. The 9070 XT at $489, $500 is going to be good value. Will it be unbeatable? No, because there's going to be advantages to getting NVIDIA that AMD doesn't have with things like their NVENC encoder, the things like CUDA support in various different professional applications. It's just going to be this weird thing where they're so close in price point, $549 versus $489. That $60 difference when you're considering buying a whole $2,000 system just isn't enough overall, right? Like, it's such a small percentage point when you're considering doing a full upgrade that they're not providing unbeatable value. They're just providing good to great value, and that's not enough for them to win at this point, unfortunately. Now we got ScarX saying 45 to 50 kilowatts of electronics in a metal box makes the box get hot. Noted, to which Brew's corrected saying it's 120 kilowatts, which is true, but it's not that the box gets hot, it's that the box doesn't properly dissipate its heat. 120 kilowatts will get hot. That's a lot of power. It needs somewhere to go, and it's not going out. It's staying in, and that is creating a problem. Then we got 4455889997 saying American TikTok PPs going to Xiaohongshu is the most ironic stuff ever. They're moving to a platform literally built to control freedom of speech. This comment probably leads to my social score being minus 1 million. Xiaohongshu! And then Alan Slice Garcia saying, my dude, you missed the biggest news of yesterday. Silksong is getting a 30-minute segment on the Switch 2 announcement video. Man, the amount of copium that Silksong fans have had to endure. I'm sorry for you guys. It's been brutal. It's been a rough, almost decade. It's been a long time. This has been tough for you guys to endure. Hopefully Switch 2 announcement gives you something for Silksong. Then we got Normative saying, no way, this dude wasn't a child actor or something, because his face looks so familiar. Trevor saying, you probably seen him on YouTube. He is a YouTuber, to which Normative saying, that's for sure, but I got a feeling about him that I saw him outside Tube 2 like child actor or something. I'm not a child actor. Was never. I have no acting aspirations, never did. I grew up as a regular kid going to school and having no job outside of that in like elementary and middle school. So I have heard the comparison that I look like Doogie Howser. I have been had that statement thrown my way. Neil Patrick Harris was a child actor, and so that has happened to me before. Maybe you're confusing me with him. Who knows? And who knows if I'll be back tomorrow. I do. I will. I'll see you then. Bye.